Good morning, everybody. We're going to call to order our June 11th, 2019 regular meeting of the Mason County Board of Commissioners. We go with our Pledge of Allegiance. George, if you wouldn't mind leading us.
Yes, sir. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 3, if the clerk would please take roll.
Commissioner District 1, Randy Netherland.
I'm here.
Commissioner District 2, Kevin Schutte.
Here.
Commissioner District 3, Sharon Trask. Here.
Very good, thank you. Item number 4, correspondence and organizational business. Item 4.1, the clerk would please report the correspondence.
Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board sent a liquor license application for Allen Community Association located at Port of Allen Waterfront Park, 18560 Washington State Route 3 in Allen. And Jan Morris sent in an application for the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee.
Very good, thank you. Moving on to item 5, this is our open forum for citizen input. It's an opportunity for members of the public to address the commission on items that are not on today's agenda or don't have a public hearing already scheduled for today. If you have an item that's not on today's agenda that you would like to discuss with the commission, raise your hand. Chair will recognize you, come forward to the podium, state your name and make your comments. Anyone for public comment? Okay, very good. Moving on to item number 6, adoption of today's agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the agenda for June 11th, 2019.
I will second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt June 11, 2019's agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Item number 7, approval of minutes. We have minutes from May 7th and May 21st, 2019's regular meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the minutes for May 7th and May 21st, 2019, their regular meeting minutes as presented.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the May 7th and 21st, 2019 regular meeting minutes as presented. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Move on to item number 8. It's approval of our action agenda today. Commissioners will read through the items on the action agenda, at which time a commissioner or member of the public may ask questions to determine if they'd like to have an item removed for a separate discussion and vote. Commissioner Netherland, if you'd please read items 8.1 and 2. Commissioner Trask, if you could read 8.3, and I'll read 8.4 and 5.
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chairman. Item number 8.1, approval to have the chair sign the agreement for the 2019 through 2021 biennium contract K2016 between the Washington State Conservation Commission and the Mason County for voluntary stewardship program implementation. Item number 8.2, approval of the resolution amending the income guidelines in the Veterans Advisory Board policy for the Veterans Assistance Program to reflect the annual income to be eligible is after taxes and medical premium deductions.
Item 8.3, approval of warrants and treasurer electronic remittances. Claims Clearing Fund, warrants number 8064654 through 8064766 in the amount of $186,611.14. Treasurer electronic remittance for May 2019 in the amount of $435,330.23.
And item 8.4, approval to have the board approve and execute the resolution setting a hearing date with the hearings examiner for July 10th, 2019 at 1 p.m. to consider public comment on the petition for vacation of the south 40 feet of Olympic Avenue that lays north of Block 14, lots 6 through 11 in the plat of Hoodsport in Mason County, Washington. And item 8.5, approval of the contract with KMB Architects for architectural and engineering services for the Mason County District Court Building 10 renovation project. This contract is the first of 3 phases. Commissioners, having read through the items on today's action agenda, are there any items that you would like to have removed for a separate discussion or vote?
No.
Are there any members of the public that would like to have an item removed for a separate discussion and vote? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the action agenda as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve today's action agenda as presented. Any additional discussion?
Just one comment. I'm glad that we did come forward to make these adjustments on that Veterans Advisory Board policy.
Very good, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Moving on to item nine, other business. This is an opportunity for department heads and electeds to address the commission. Are there any that would like to do so? Okay. Hearing none, we have not yet reached 9:15 to begin our public hearings. So without objection, I'd like to move to item number 11, which is our board report and calendar. If there's no objection to that, begin with Commissioner Trask, Commissioner Netherland, and then I'll finish up.
Thank you. Well, last week I took a tour of the Sierra Pacific. Encourage everyone to take a tour. It's quite an amazing plant. Let's see, tonight we have a joint meeting with the City of Shelton. Really looking forward to that one. Tomorrow, there's business after hours at Hoodsport Communication. And Thursday I have meetings with staff, a Turning Point board meeting, a graduation party to go to, and the all-important hair appointment. And then Harstine Island is doing a community, it's the crossing of the bridge parade. Should be a lot of fun, should be very interesting. There's a lot of history there. Saturday is we do a community feed once a month. And then we're back to Monday with the county briefing and chamber event that evening.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I had a meeting with the Allen Community Association, gave them an update on all the things that we're doing within the county, within their region. I also attended a meeting for YWRA 15, which is our watershed area up in the North Mason, in regards to the Hearst decision, trying to find the answers and put together the projects that will allow for us to continue to grow as a county and continue to have value in the properties that we have up there. I attended a meeting that was a joint meeting between the city, the South Chamber, and the EDC, which was a thank you to our delegation for the 35th and a recognition of what all they did. I had a meeting of the Arc of the Peninsulas. It brings briefings. And that brings us to, after this, I have a meeting to go over how to do SmartGov. We have a staff potluck that I think we'll all be attending, so we will be there. There will be no business conducted, just food eating. I'm meeting with a member of the North Mason Chamber of Commerce regarding some issues up there. We have a joint meeting with the city later on tonight. I have a meeting with ORCA, Olympic Regional Clean Air Authority. I am meeting also, I'll be attending a gathering for John Weeks, who's receiving his Royal Ranger degree, which is like an Eagle Scout. Michelle Britton with DOT regarding Highway 3 and some of the connections over the 302 for everything that's going on in that freight corridor. I also will have a financial briefing with ORCA. I'll have a meeting of the Economic Development Council. Let's see, I will also be attending the Harstine Island. I'm a speaker on that, briefings. And then that also brings us back to our regular business and director evaluations that are that day.
Very good, thank you. 2 quick items from last week. I also had a chance to tour the Sierra Pacific mill here in town, and Commissioner Trask is right when she says that it's just a tremendous facility, and encourage everybody to get out and if you're able to take a tour of that. It's a fantastic mill. It's a state-of-the-art facility, and it's the most efficient, according to Sierra Pacific, which I have no reason to doubt them, but it's the most efficient mill in the country, and we have it right here in Shelton. And they were initially coming in and expecting to have to create 170 jobs. They're at 280 and still hiring. So that's pretty good for our community. We'll take that. And they're at about $100 million investment in our community as well. So it's great to see timber still thriving here in Mason County, and Sierra Pacific is a great partner in all that work. I also had a chance to get out with our Hood Canal District Ranger, Iwa Lau, with the U.S. Forest Service. You may have heard some rumblings, but there's going to be some significant improvements made to Forest Service roads around Lake Cushman and up towards Staircase, and so those projects are going to be getting up and running here in the next several weeks, and it was good to get up there with our district ranger and take a look at where those projects are happening, and they'll be putting out some more information so that folks know what impacts there may be to accessing, you know, the campgrounds and trails up there. But it will certainly be a project that will improve access to that area, and I think they're pretty excited to be able to get that work started. Going forward, kind of an abbreviated week for me. Have a MACECOM board meeting later today, as well as the joint meeting with the city council. Also have a meeting tomorrow with public health and some of our criminal justice leaders in the community. Talk about a program called LEAD, which is Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. And so this is something that Commissioner Drexler was working on prior to her leaving office last year. And so those conversations are still continuing with our behavioral health partners and law enforcement partners in the community. And so be attending that meeting tomorrow, and then I'm out of town for a family obligation through the weekend, and then back to work on Monday morning. Okay, having now reached the 9:15 mark, we can move into our public hearings. We'll begin with item 10.1, a public hearing to consider the application from Nicholas Apolsky to place parcel 52024-34-00030 into open space, and ask staff to brief.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Planning and Zoning Support Services. So as stated, it's a public hearing to consider this application into the open space. The assessor's office is recommending that all 6.16 acres be placed in.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Any questions for staff, Commissioner? No? Any questions from the public for staff? Okay. Oh.
Well, I'm Nick Polsky. I didn't know if you wanted me to say a few things about the property.
Well, when we move into public comment, you can make comment then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So is it accepted? Is that what I meant?
That's. Okay, well, it sounds like there are no other questions for staff, so with that, we'll move into public comment. If you'd like to make public comment on item 10.1.
Oh, no, you're asking me
Yep,
now?
if you want to.
Okay. I was going to be in a while. I got to get to work.
No.
All right, well, let's start the door. Yeah, now I forgot what I was going to say. I am Nick Polsky from West Highland Road, about 10 miles west of the county. I do have some real nice maps that kind of illustrate, if you'd like to see those real quickly, some of our county maps. I don't know if they were in the application, but it might help if I say my little speech here.
Thank you.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Randy. Okay. So I've lived in Mason County about 27 years on 4.45 acres, adjoining the subject property, which is 6.16 acres. I basically purchased it. It took me about 17 years to do it, but I basically purchased it for a green belt and kind of a no-build zone. When I did that, or since I was first there, I realized it wasn't real development friendly and it had some issues. So why open space? I feel this property is a watershed down to the Little Egypt Road. Highland Road is about 455 feet above sea level. The valley, wetlands, and Little Egypt are 245 feet above sea level. There is a year-round stream on the property. I've been down there like 2014 when it was very dry and it was still probably 2 feet wide and 8 inches deep. I was very surprised. It does come out of the hillside across the road, runs about 800 feet, a gentle slope across the track. It tracks south of the subject property and then drops into a very deep ravine. The ravine has been rated as a hazard zone by the DNR, Department of Natural Resources, in 2007 and 2009, rated high and very high. I actually had a 91-foot Douglas fir fall down there the right way that I could cut it up in 2015. It kind of surprised me. So again, Highland Road's about 455 feet above sea level. The back of my property and the ravine drops down to about 345 feet above sea level. Again, Little Egypt Valley is 245 feet. There's, of course, wildlife in there. There's some huge owls in there and various animals that we usually see. One interesting part that you'll see that came out on our maps, there is a wetland on the property, but it's not a pond or a marsh. It's a wetland that has high water table. If cleared, I'm sure it would be a pond there, especially in one corner. There's grass that is probably this high right now, and there are huge balls at the bottom, kind of the base. And in the winter, as the rainy season, there'll be canals that will fill up in there, and they'll stay there most of the winter. And again, it's a gentle slope running towards the ravine and towards the seasonal creek. In the mid-70s, the owner attempted to plant Christmas trees, most of which failed in these wetter areas. There's still some standing 40-foot plus trees that made it. Some of them have ended up like this. And finally there's about 70-plus-year-old the firs and maples surrounding the ravine. I've left that property alone. I want, especially towards the back. And again, about 15% of the Christmas trees they planted towards the front managed to make it. So I think in the public benefit rating system that's coming up, I think it would rate well if it revisited. And again, I think building sites, the runoff with roadways and possibly septics could be an issue. Someone would have to spend some money to build on it. So that's about it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'll go to work.
Any other public comment on item 10.1? Okay, hearing no additional comment on item 10.1, we'll close public comment and move to commissioner deliberation or motion.
Commissioner, seeing that, listen to, is it Opolsky?
Opolsky, yes.
Listen to Mr. Polsky's testimony, but also based on the fact that the assessor has recommended that all 6.16 acres be placed in open space, I move for approval of the application for Mr. Nicholas Opolsky to place parcel number 52024 -34-00030 into open space.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the application from Nicholas Opolsky to place parcel 52024-34-00030 into open space. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And the motion carries.
Thank you very much. That's more than I expected today. Thank you. Have a nice day.
That's us. Under promise, over deliver. And with that, we can move on to item 10.2, public hearing to consider moving forward with the formation of a lake management district for Spencer Lake, LMD number 3, for a 10-year period commencing in 2020, and ask staff to come forward and brief.
Good morning, Diane Zorn, Support Services. So this hearing is to consider the petition received from citizens on Spencer Lake requesting the county form a lake management district. The petition was requesting that the rates be set at 23 cents per thousand evaluation, and it would commence in 2020. And it would be used to treat the aquatic vegetation in the lake.
Okay, very good. Any questions, commissioners, for staff? Okay. Good, okay. Any questions, not comments, just questions for staff from the public?
Just Dan? Okay. I would like to know who's going to be on this board, and who are they going to get to handle the aquatic, the algae and the stuff how are they going to get rid of it, basically? And how about, if we're going to form this management, are we going to manage the lake level also? Or is this just for the plant life?
This is for plant life, and it's the committee is a citizens committee of those on the lake, and I'm not even sure who's exactly on it. I've been dealing with Steve Evander and Doris.
So
it's driven by
Right.
citizens of the lake, and you form your committee and you manage the money and what you do with it.
okay, now, since the bulk of this is coming from the people that live on the lake, how about the people that come with their boats and bring in this other plant life, like the milfoil? There's algae that I don't recognize growing in the lake. That's been there since I lived there. And I've been living on that lake for over about 26 years now.
Is how the lake management districts are formed is that it does charge, and in this case, it would be those that have lakefront.
Right, but how come we're not charging the people that bring their boats in and utilize the lake?
So that might be a conversation to have with the folks that are on the committee.
Okay.
Bill?
State of Washington owns or operates a boat launch. Will they be providing income to this district also?
Yes.
But only for the parts of land.
Yes.
They don't know.
Yeah,
They don't know.
I just want to make that
They're
clear.
included in the rates, yes.
Okay, any other questions before we move into public comment? Commissioner?
But make comment on your question regarding fees and stuff like that. That's also a state-owned waterway. You're not going to be able to place a fee on that.
Well, I understand, when I tried to get this, when I have tried over the years to get this plant life addressed before it got as bad as it has, and also to regulate the lake level, because my house flooded every year. It got to a point where I had to tear it down and move it back, and because of the dry rot and the black mold in it. Now, I know that FEMA already designated certain parts of this lake as a flood zone. So what I'm saying is, if we're doing this management, and I was told way back when, about 15 years ago, that it's a state-owned lake, a county-owned lake. So why, I looked at this as a tax. And I was told that there's nothing the county is responsible for, it's only the culverts underneath the road that feeds into the bay. Now, and there's no water coming into this lake, it's all spring fed. So there's a spillway only. And we used to keep, my husband and a neighbor kept it clean, and the grading on the spillway broke off. And so now you got this spillway that feeds into the bay that doesn't do its job for aerating the water. So and I was told that the spillway is not the county's responsibility to keep clean, it's all the people that live on the spillway. Now how are we gonna regulate this plant life when it's a county-owned lake? That's my question. I mean, I've been batting this one for years.
Any other questions before we move into public comment? Okay.
I guess I have one.
Okay. One.
Somebody with a pen.
Go ahead.
Historically, what were the lake levels before the county or whoever put in the spillway? Are we looking now environmentally at what things should be and not what we want to make them? So who put in that spillway? Was it a good idea? I've heard no. And so that's my question. Historically, where should that lake be? And should we take that lake back to where historically it is supposed to be?
Yeah. I just want to remind you, I wish I had those answers for you, but that's not what's before us. We don't have the says in those things, and that's definitely not within our purview. We're only looking at the Lake Management District, and as it is presented by law, and how it is brought to us. And we only have so many things that we can even do with this. This is not, there is no opportunity for us to do any of the changes that you want here at this meeting for any of that. But I would be happy to meet with you, so would other commissioners, if we could see if we can find other things to do.
I understand that, but shouldn't we know that information before moving forward with anything? That was my question. Shouldn't that be a part of what we look at this moment? I'm not saying change anything. I'm saying, shouldn't we look at what truly is good for that lake, not what, people have done to the lake? That's all.
Yeah, and that I think is a valid point. Today, what we're considering is a vote, to put it to a vote to your community. And if there are concerns like that in the community, then you'll have a vote on the Lake Management District itself. And if you think there needs to be more work done, then you can vote accordingly on that.
I was curious, you said the money is to be spent in the lake. if the committee were to determine that maybe they should set up a whole cleaning operation on the boat launch, which is not in the water, so people mandatorily have to clean the hull of their boat before they can take it into the lake to stop bringing in contamination. Is that a viable use of that money?
I'd have to check with legal to see, it sounds like somewhat of a capital improvement there.
Yes.
And I assume that's state land, so it would have to be in conjunction with the state allowing that. I know it's, the other two lake management districts we have treat the actual plants in the lake, so I haven't ran across doing any other kind of improvement. But it's something we can certainly look at. It's pretty, the law when you read it is pretty wide open on it's to manage the vegetation, and it does allow some other things in the RCW. But it is driven by the citizens, and that money does go into a special fund at the county, and it's used then for Spencer Lake.
But it is maybe impossible.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll move into our public comment period. If you'd like to make a comment, I know there's probably at least a couple of you that would. We don't have a time limit overall, but we ask you to try to keep your own comments to about 3 minutes. So we can get through as many people as like to speak today. If you'd like to make a comment, raise your hand. Come to the...
Before we start, before we start though, I want to make it clear what we have before us, so there's not confusion. We don't. A lot of these things we'd like to talk about are not before us. The only thing that's before this commission is putting something on the ballot for you to vote on. You see, somebody's already gone out and did their work and put together their 35% and brought it to us by petition. With that, that triggers this, and with this, the only thing we vote on is whether or not it goes on a ballot to you folks for you to make your own decisions. We don't decide this or how that's even set up. That's not within our purview. That's set up by RCW and by your vote.
Do you want to make a comment?
There's a sign-up list of the different comments.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that might be a good idea. I'll just take them in order on there, and if once we get through that, if there are additional people that didn't sign in, we'll take that as it comes to.
Didn't know you're gonna have to read those, huh?
Yeah. Okay. Bill, did you sign in with a question mark? Do you want to testify or no?
Sure.
Okay.
Welcome back, Bill. You still got a ticket hanging out. Some things never change.
I live on Gray Avenue. I live in the old Gray house, which isn't Gray, it's green, but Warren Gray's parents owned half the lake on that side. So the house was built in the early 50s. We moved here about 12 years ago to retire. And first thing I did was go down and stand by the water and look at the water. There's green things here in the water and green things there. It didn't bother me. So we went ahead and bought the house anyway. I don't know if there's more or less of those green things. But your guys' job today is to let us do the democratic process, and that is decide thumb up or thumb down. I think if you took a vote right now, the thumbs up would probably have it about 50-2. But your job is just to put that on the ballot. My comment, I guess, is remember Yellowstone. This is for my neighbors. There's a park called Yellowstone, started in 1873, and most of you remember the thing about the wolves. They took the wolves out. By 1926, there wasn't a wolf left in Yellowstone, and they've been fighting for 150 years since its inception to get the balance in nature back. Too many elk because the wolves are gone. Too many coyotes because the wolves are gone. And you go through the whole thing, right down to even the beavers, because the elk love to eat the same saplings that the beavers like. The beavers were down to, 15 years ago, there was one left, which meant the marshlands was affected, all the birds, etc., etc. So somebody in this committee that will be formed, I'm sure they'll have a committee formed, because they're going to allow it to happen, and they will do that. Somebody needs to decide, as this lady said, what point do you pick as the optimum point? 1985, 2015, at what point do you say everything that's happened since then we want to reverse? Or do you pick the year 2000? How about 1950? I really think the committee will take into consideration the people that have lived on the lake for 50 years, 75 years, second or third generation, and hear what they have to say. There's been a little comment already. Water levels. And maybe the best way to solve this is you don't allow any waterfowl to land on the lake, because they bring stuff that sometimes we don't want in the water. And maybe you need to close the boat launch. Stuff's coming in by boat. Human beings are causing most of the changes to the water in the lake that we're seeing. You have to have a point to begin with. Maybe we should go back to 1900 and say, well, we'll try and reverse everything back there. Remember Yellowstone. Things that we do will be affected long before we're still alive. We'll be gone. Our dependents or somebody else gets to try and clean up the mess that we're going to cause. But right now, we're going to have an election, what, in fall? Whenever you put out a ballot, and we'll get to decide on a district, and that's fine. Everybody gets to go to the meetings and decide what to do with their future. Just remember, our decisions will be felt by our generations that we leave our stuff to, or people that come to the lake years from now. And I would love to, in these first meetings, have some of the old timers, if you're a second or third generation, come to the meeting. Tell us what the good old days used to be like. Maybe that's our goal.
Thank you. Thank you. Doris Acker.
Good morning, and thank you very much for entertaining our petition for creating of the Lake Management District. And I'm speaking on behalf of the committee that prepared the petition. And I'd like to provide just a little bit of background in that for a number of years, various citizens, landowners at Spencer Lake have been concerned about the growing spread of particularly lily pads, non-native species, and then also noticing the increase of a lot of other weeds that are growing in there that never used to be there. So with that, we worked with the Mason County Noxious Weed Coordinator to begin investigating and doing some surveys and trying to know exactly what we were dealing with. And ultimately, that ended up with us being able to receive a grant from the Washington State Department of Ecology to create an integrated lake weed management plan for Spencer Lake. With the completion of that a year ago, we needed to start looking at ways that we could raise the funds needed to be able to implement parts of this plan. And the plan has been made public in a number of different ways, but I do have one copy here, and copies can be made available to anybody that wants them. And we did try to go back and look at some history and have some historical information in there about, you know, the dikes on the southern end, etc. When we began looking at the funding options, we investigated a number of different counties and those lakes within Mason County that have had successful lake management districts. And one of them that we relied heavily on was on Mason Lake because they've run a very successful program. There are pros and cons to just about every method of assessment that there is, but the committee felt that based on total assessment value around Spencer Lake was a fair and equitable way to consider the diversity of the properties that include wetlands that are going to have minimal ability to do development or activity, to older homesteads that have been there for a long time, and then also the new homes that are being built on the lake. So I just wanted to be able to provide a little bit of background about where we got to where we are, and thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Herb Larson.
Yes. I have a point paper here that I'd like to present to the commissioners.
give you a copy. Morning, Commissioners and fellow lake owners and property owners on the lake. I'm Herb Larson. I live at 1120 East Pickering Road, which is right at the north end of the lake. First off, let me say that I am in full support of the Lake Management District. It's something that we do definitely need. We need to take control of the lake and manage it as necessary. If there are problems with it, it needs to be taken care of. My objection to the proposal of the Lake Management District was the petition that was adopted by the commissioners, and the main thing that I object to is the method of funding. Currently, the petition that was accepted asked for funding on the total value of the property, which I feel does not meet the requirements of the RCW 36.61.160, which says it should be an equitable break. I believe the exact words. There's something along the lines of, the RCW suggests using footage. Footage doesn't work well, but it does say that it should be deemed fair and they're deemed fair to reflect the special benefit. Also, the RCW, I believe, places the onus on the commissioners to determine how the funding will be made. It's up to the Lake Management District to use that funding. So petition can get amended or whatever in your exception for what it is. If we use a total value, we have properties that are right next to each other that are paying disparate amounts. Everywhere from $105 to a place right next to it that's paying $50. Yet they're the same exact size properties, everything else. So they would receive the same value from the increased management of the lake. But because the structures are different on the property, which gets no value from the improvement of the lake, they're paying different amounts. Whereas if we base on just the value of the property, that would take into consideration the use of the land, because the county assessor determines the value of the property based on how it can be used. So those areas that could not be developed would have a lower use. Those that are fully developed or could be developed in the future would have a higher value. Therefore, the lake management would they gain more value as the property increases. Using the current method in the petition, the lowest of 22,000 per, or 23 cents per thousand, the lowest value paid is $5.31 for a property that has a value of $23,100 with 0 improvements on it. And it's got 100 foot of waterfront footage. And the highest is $307 for a property that has a land value of $231,580 with improvements of $1,107,000. And it has 550 foot of waterfront. So there's a big disparity right there between those two. And they both are large footage required. Using the proposal that I came up with of 60 cents per thousand based on land market value, the lowest assessment would be $13.86. Again, the land value is $23,100. The improvements are 0, and it still has 100 foot of waterfront. The highest value any owner would pay was $173.45, with a land value of $289,080. Their improvements are $80,600, and they have 126 foot of waterfront. So, by going with land, overall, the highest value would be lower, but overall more people would be paying the same. We have a lot of properties that are assessed at the same value. And so now they would pay the same if we went with a land value, which I believe goes along with the RCW, than a total assessed value. Last thing that shows it there is, let's see, overall assessment would be almost the same. Yeah, our going with the 60 cents per 100,000. You'd only increase the lowest value by $8.20, but the highest value would decrease by $133. So if the highest came down, that means we have to share it more equitably between all the owners. That's what I would like the commission to take a look at, seeing if we can do. I do not want to hold up the formation of the lake management, though. We do need that. It's just how are we going to fund it? I believe that's in your map.
Thank you. Joyce Arnold.
Hi, Gary, can I go down the list? I want to hear more of what is that okay?
Okay, we'll try to get back to you.
Thank you.
Kathy Christoffel, you have a
pass.
question mark you want to pass? Okay. Richard Buchholz. All right.
My name is Richard Buchholz, and I've been on the lake since 1975. So I've seen a lot of things happen over the years. I'm also in favor of the Lake Management District to get rid of the weeds and stuff in the lake that have been growing slowly over the years. I want to make sure we get a vote on a specific plan and a specific budget, and that it doesn't last more than 5 years. I noticed the original plan in the commissioner's website calls for a 5-year plan of $50,000. The notice for this meeting calls for a 10-year plan of $176,000. I'm afraid somebody's going to say, oh, we need to go 15 years and $250,000, or let's make it permanent. So I'd be willing to support a 5-year plan with the evaluation and then another vote if we want to go further. And the lake level has all to do with the beaver dam. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, very good, thank you.
I like
Yeah.
I like
That's why you got a lake level.
Joe Snyder.
Thank you. Thank you for taking your time to hear our petition. I am for the formation of the Lake Management District, and I think it's important for us all to realize that we're not going to solve everything. It's a plan to help attack the most urgent problem, which is the noxious weeds and the lily pad you're expanding. The other thing is, I believe if I understand this right, your role is either to send this petition forward or not. That is, you're not amending the petition. Is that correct?
I think if we could amend it, did we hear? on
When
that?
I checked with Tim Whitehead, he said if we change what was noticed, we could start over.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Okay, so, yeah, I'm in favor of it, I'm in favor of it happening soon, and I'm in favor of it as is. I think the big controversial issue, one of them, is the method of funding. I support the total assessed value. One of my main reasons, it's more economical. It's more economical for the county to administer it on that basis, because that's how the county administers everything else in that process. So for us to do it just around land value would mean that the assessor, the treasurer, they have to break this out for us where they don't break it out for anyone else, and I think that adds to expenses. It also would add to confusion. Some taxpayer comes in and says, hey, the rate is lower on my fire district than the lake district, but my taxes are more. How come? Well, because that's still the assessed value of the lake district, is just the land value. That's going to use up the administrative time, use up county employee time, and I don't think that's appropriate. I think you have every right to say, we're going to adopt a plan of funding that is the most economical for the county to administer. Not only do you have the right to say that, that's what you should say. That's the appropriate way to manage the budgets that you manage. The assessor would have a particular problem if it's based on land value because they don't have comparable sales of land. The lake has got almost all places with improvements, houses, cabins, trailers. So to say that to have a comp for the land value, that's going to be difficult for them to have, which makes it difficult for them to justify what the established land value is. Creates controversy. Secondly, in terms of the equity, I think we look at what is our purpose. Our purpose in doing this is to make our property more enjoyable, or to preserve the enjoyability of our property. Not only our land, but our houses. So I think to say that it affects only how much we enjoy the land part is not an accurate thing to say. I enjoy sitting on my deck. I think it affects the use of the enjoyment I get from my home. The other is that we're looking at protecting our investment. The value of my house and the value of my land will rise and fall with the quality of the lake. So if the quality of the lake goes down, not only will the value of my land go down, but the value of my house will go down. Again, I think that's a reason to say that doing it on the total assessed value is more equitable than doing it on just the land. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a question for you first. You were one of the original people who put together the proposal?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying you were one of the ones that put together the 35% petition.
No, I am not on that committee, have not been on that committee. I am grateful for that committee's work, and I take the chance to say that publicly anytime I get a chance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Deborah Bozzona.
Oh, I'm okay. You can
Okay.
pass me.
Okay. Carl Hoffman?
I'm okay.
Okay. Sharon Settle?
I'm not here. I had nothing to say.
Okay. Harry or Linda Ireland?
We pass.
Cass? Okay. Okay, Joyce. There were a lot of no's on here to testify.
I've been on the lake a long time. I don't recall exactly how long I've been on the lake, but it's been a long time. I've seen the levels high and low, and I'm not a weed expert, but my understanding is if we kept the lake high, in other words, if that outlet thing had never been built many, many years ago, and my neighbor has owned there forever. I bought from one of the original owners, okay, and I've owned it for almost 30 years. And I wish he were here, because he could really help, because I forget all the things he's told me, but he could really help educate people as to how the lake has developed all these years, and the lake coming down. In other words, okay, I'll be short. I agree we need a management. I don't like the 10-year, absolutely not. You get into our pockets, you stay in our pockets. I'm sorry, that's tax. 5-year, cut it off. Look at how long it's taken for these things to grow. And if we can take care of it in that 5-year, we may not have to have another management for another 10 years. If we do it right, they've taken a dam off the river, up north of us. I don't remember the name of the dam, I don't have eyes on you. They've taken the dam off. What do we need to do to make this lake right? And that's the biggest issue to me. It's taken a long time for all these obnoxious weeds to come. Honestly, I don't have any of the bad ones. I've got the natural ones, and I go rake them out when they get too much, when I want to swim out the side. Otherwise, I go off the dock and there's none there. If the water level were higher, those wouldn't reach the surface. They wouldn't get their chlorophyll. They wouldn't survive. That's my understanding. But I'm not a weed expert. So I think the whole thing needs to be looked at, not just, I don't know. But I agree that it needs management. 10 years, I agree, absolutely not. And how it's funded, I see both sides of that issue, so I can't.
Great, thank you. Okay, I've gotten through the list of folks that have signed in to testify. Would you like to make a comment? Okay.
Hi, thanks for having the meeting this morning. I live on the lake. I've been there.
State your name.
Oh, Brian Herbert, at 40 East Lakeway Drive. I'm on the north end of the lake. I've seen the weeds start to encroach on the north end, and I am too in favor of the management project. The problem I have with is the way it's being assessed. As I understand it, the only way I've heard about this is through Facebook and the Spencer Lake community. I've heard a few rumblings. I've gone to the meeting for the, when they had the grant money and how it was being appropriated, and it was real good. And at that meeting, it was brought up, hey, we need to start a war chest, which is basically what we're doing here. I've heard Mason County been brought up. There's over 2,300 houses or lots on Mason County. There's only 186 on Spencer Lake. Okay, to tie it into a assessed value of the property, the total assessed value is one-sided. Okay, there's 23, I think we looked it up, there's 23 houses that are rated at $100 or $500,000. And that's the figure that the committee put out. They said it's going to cost everybody about $115 if your house is assessed at $500,000. Well, that's all well and good, but that is not going to create enough money to do anything for quite a while when only 23 houses are assessed at that. Okay, I've heard about property. Property is probably a fairer way to go, or footage. Now, I understand you guys are here to vote on this committee's whether it goes forward or whether it doesn't. Okay, it needs to go forward, but I think it needs to also be addressed back to the committee to say, hey, okay, I've never been contacted, and I've lived on the lake a long time. But there's a lot of people that haven't been contacted from the rumbling I've seen on Facebook. Okay, I'd rather see a get together of people on the lake and to decide, hey, this is what needs to be done. Okay, and then maybe come back with a viable plan to do it by footage, which I think is the fairest. I think is the fairest. Or land value. And last but not least, property value that's really one-sided. Because I see lots on the lake that just have trailers. There's no assessed value there. You basically got land value and a trailer. And they come out just as much as people do that live on the lake to use the water, you know, the water, like what you're developing from the water for boats and everything else. Okay, I'd like to see something, and we can go back to the committee on later. I've heard people talk about the boat launch. Okay, I've seen people on the boat launch come out of the bay, go to Spencer Lake, and put their water engines in the lake to filter them out. Okay, that has to be addressed, but that has to be addressed by a committee of the people on Spencer Lake. To go back to the people who can do something about that. Okay, that's not where this venue is. This venue is, we want the committee formed, but it hasn't been done properly yet because I've had no input. I don't think Mr. Larson had the real input until just recently when he started complaining about it. Okay, I don't know. I don't have much more to say except the fact that I want to stay on the lake. There is a problem, whether it's water level or whether it's noxious weeds, which, well, unfortunately, were put in as a decoration period or item on the lake in the 60s. And now we're paying for that. All right, it needs to be addressed, but I don't think our war chest is going to be to a point where we can do anything in the time to matter. I'd rather see everybody on the lake get assessed $200 per lot. I think that's fair. That's even more than the committee was originally asking for. It's going to create a lot more money. I'd pay $1,000, okay, to get the war chest started, to get the lake cleaned up. But anyway, that's said enough. You guys are the ones that have to make the decision whether to go forward. I think it needs to be looked at a little bit more. And that you can change the way it is going to be funded. If you can change the way it's been funded, let's change it. If you can't, then it needs to go back to committee. The committee needs to call meetings from the people on the lake so they can sit down. And I don't mean their little get-together things on the lake where they have their weekly meeting deciding. They need meetings. Or at least, at the very least, a letter put out to everybody on the lake saying, hey, where do you want to go on this? You know, $115 doesn't sound like much. All right? But that's a start. And $115 for 23 properties isn't going to create enough on that lake to do much of anything. All it is going to have a committee, and the lakes might get addressed somewhere in a 10-year period. Anyway, I've said enough. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. Any other public comment?
Question.
Okay, sure.
Those that know me, I'm not a public
public speaker, so.
That's okay,
forgive me, but my question and comment is,
You just state your name for the record.
sorry, Colleen Sterling, is that you are deciding if this proposal be put on a ballot. That's what you're deciding. And I hear comments and they go back and forth, and I understand everybody's comments and concerns. My concern is, I live on the north end also. And I'm out there razoring the rakes, or the weeds with my razor and pulling them up to no avail because they come right back. So I'm friends with Doris Zucker that put this together. And how long did it take us to get here?
More than 5 years.
More than 5 years. How much money to get here right now?
We needed to collect privately at least $2,000 to cover the cost for setting forth this meeting and this process, which we did.
Now, I understand that you can't change the proposal without starting at point zero. Is that correct? So, if we change anything in here, that means we're starting at point zero again and possibly waiting another 5 years. Personally, I'd like to move forward because I have to deal with the weeds. I know some of you don't have to deal with the weeds. You don't have any, which be thankful. But you know, I have my grandkids coming and swimming in the lake, and they have to swim through these yucky weeds. I don't like weeds. So I propose we move forward. I don't want to go back to zero and start over again. And I know that we've had a few meetings, and I think everyone has been, they've tried to contact everyone on the lake. You might not have been home, you might not answer phones, whatever, but I think almost everyone's was tried to get a hold of. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? Yes.
My name is Darrell White. I live on the North Cove, and people have been talking about the fact it takes a long time for the weeds to grow. Well, that's a bunch of crap. I've lived there since 2000, and I could go around the cove area there and catch fish just circling around once. You can't do that anymore. The fish are gone. You can't really fish in there anymore because the plant life is choked off, that part of it. There's part of the cove. If I were property owners, I wouldn't even want to buy a house there because the whole place is just filled in, and sometimes I've seen them go through and kind of make a little path so they have a way to get out even into part of the cove. And then another part of the cove goes out to the main part of the lake, and eventually that's probably going to be choked off unless the folks there, you know, keep using their razors and that sort of thing. But it shouldn't have to be. Weeds grow fast. In the summertime, I was a teacher in the summertime in Montana. I would spray weeds in the county, and so I know how fast weeds grow, and I've seen it in parts of the North Cove since 2000 when I first moved there. And so weeds grow fast. So when people say, well, it takes a long time, it really doesn't. And now all the milfoil and the crap in the middle of the cove, when you go through there with your boat, you can't even hardly fish in there anymore. You get caught, your lines get caught up, you can't troll in there. My grandkids, I have to use my razor to cut a place out by my dock so they can come and swim every year. And I never had that. When I first moved into the North Cove, there may have been a few paths, but it was nothing like it is now. And we're only talking since 2000, 19 years. And so the weeds do go quickly, and who knows what other weeds we can get. So we do need a management committee, and we need to start it now and not wait another 5 years and just keep talking about it. Something actually needs to be done. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Yeah. Can I speak?
Please.
Yeah. I would just like to address a couple of the points that have been brought up. That one, the duration of time.
State your name.
Jerry Zucker. And I have owned property on the lake since about 1990 and lived there full time for about the last 11 years. And I have definitely seen an increase in the weeds. Those of us who are familiar with the lake and the north end. It's a one-way boat lane in and out of the North Cove now because of the encroachment of the weeds. But you know, it didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to be taken care of in just 5 years. And I understand their concern about, you know, once you start a tax, it never goes away. But the problem is you can't just go in and wipe all the weeds out in 1 or 2 applications of whatever it is, whether it's a lake mower or herbicide of some sort. It's going to take an extended effort in order to get rid of the weeds that are there. And Pat, you could probably help me out with this, but you can only go in and remove small portions of the lake each year, and you have to continue to address that each year after that. Otherwise, you got these bogs that float to the top and create more of a problem with the weeds growing there. So I think we need to have at least a 10-year plan in order to really deal with the problem. The other one is that people are concerned with people bringing boats in from salt water with weeds on them and infecting or introducing foreign species into the lake. I don't think the saltwater plants grow in fresh water. Am I correct in that, Pat?
Pretty much for most plant species.
So it's really when people are bringing weeds from other lakes in the area that creates a problem. So I don't know if requiring people to wash down their boats if they've been in salt water is really an issue at all. So anyway, but it is time to move forward. I don't want to go back either. We've been working on this for a long time, and it would be nice to see it go to a vote, so I would urge you to do that.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Just stretching? Okay. One more time, any additional public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public comment period and move into Commissioner deliberation or motion. Commissioner?
Where did the 10-year come from? So it was on the petition. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go over some of the points that were made. First, I want to thank Mr. Larson. You did a heck of a job. When I first read your proposal, I was really impressed with all the work you did, how accurate you were. But I also want to make note that something you said, that you don't want to stop this.
That's correct.
We
need the lake management.
Yes. Well, according to our attorneys, just so you know, if the commission choose to change the formula of rates and charges from the 23 cents per thousand valuation that was petitioned and noticed, the process would have to start all over again. That's our attorneys, and it's kind of hard for us to buck that, so I want to make that.
Look at the RCW 3661, it's all over the place.
Yep,
so
nope.
I understand that.
Welcome to our world. I'm telling you.
I know.
But I do want to tell you, I was very impressed with what you had put together, but I don't want to hold it up. And from what I've heard from others, even others that have issues, they don't want to hold it up either. But I want to make clear that it would hold it up without a doubt. I also want to make comment on the idea of having participation in the community. In order to get 35%, that is a huge participation in our world. You know, look at how many are here today for even putting this into action. It's not nowhere near the 35%. There's no way that we could ever, as a commission, go and just reach out to everybody and talk to everybody when we are making a decision, although some of the neighbors expect us to. We'll send out notice to people within a couple hundred feet of every property. We still hear from 1, maybe 2. So when you put together 35% is a huge ask of somebody to do in the first place. Now, I would hope that if this is decided to move forward, that the only way it's going to pass is if they have a full communication with the community and you have full meetings, because that's how you get it to actually pass. So I would hope that you take that very seriously and you put together whatever's needed to make sure you get all that. It's okay. Get all that out there. And I do want to make clear, it is a tax. There's no way around it. You were right when you were saying this, like a tax, it is a tax. The question that is put before your community if we decide to move forward is, do they want to pay that tax? But it is a tax.
Very good. Any other discussion?
No. I would like to say that you guys know the lake a lot better than we do. And so putting this before you, I think, is the right thing to do. I fish. I really hate getting my line snagged on weeds. and losing that bass that I'm hoping that I had. And so I think that putting this before you guys is going to help manage the lake better. You guys will have a big say in what happens.
Yeah, I would concur. You know, I often kind of, it's tongue in cheek, but I when I meet with constituents, I often say that, you know, like 90% of the problems that we have to deal with at the county can be solved by neighbors working better together. And I think this is an opportunity for your community to continue to work together. And you know, I think the concerns were heard loud and clear today. I don't think it would be wise to set this back further. I think we heard that from folks today, even when they brought their concerns forward. And you know, as Commissioner Netherland said, 35% participation to get a petition together is a high number. But when you think of what it takes to pass this and adopt this into your community, it's an even higher number. Excuse me. And so, if we do move this forward here today, which I'm hopeful that we do, it'll give you guys at Spencer Lake an opportunity to continue to work through this. And you know, the reality is, if you don't get the 50+1 threshold, you're going to be back at square one anyway. And so it really is, it's important for folks to come together and try to solve this issue, because you know, there's a reason why the saying is, grow like weeds. Weeds grow fast, and that's a problem that's not going to go away. So I would really encourage everyone to continue to work together, you know, as neighbors, and understand that this is maybe an imperfect step, but a step forward nonetheless.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of the resolution adopting findings and determinations consistent with RCW 36.61.070 regarding the establishment of a Lake Management District Number 3 for Spencer Lake, and submitting the establishment of Lake Management District Number 3 to a vote of the property owners within the proposed district.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution adopting findings and determinations consistent with RCW 36.61.070 regarding the establishment of Lake Management District Number 3 for Spencer Lake, and submitting the establishment of Lake Management District Number 3 to a vote of the property owners within the proposed district. Any additional discussion? I just give a word of thanks to staff, Diane, for putting all this together for us and continuing to work with folks in the Spencer Lake community, and really just my hat off to everybody for coming in today too. It's important to, whether you agree or disagree, to have your voice heard in the process, and this is I think a really good display of how important this issue is to the Spencer Lake community. So appreciate everybody taking their time to come in on a very, very nice Tuesday morning when you could be out at the lake. So hearing no other discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, and the motion carries. Having reached the end of our regular agenda, would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moving second, we adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. We're adjourned. Have a good day, everybody.